Wolf the Wolf, and welcome to the very first episode of Game Developer's Perspective. I started this new thing. I don't know if it's gonna be a working thing or not. I want to make it a persistent show for you guys to enjoy, and I want to explain a few things of why I actually started to make this series, if I shall call it that. So the first reason is because I'm gonna take a TOEFL test very soon, since I want to apply for a PhD studies for a PhD school in the University of Nebraska, which is in the USA, and it's a mandatory thing for me to take this test. And my English speaking skills are completely trash, so I need to improve upon them. That's the first reason. The second reason is because I enjoy games. And I really like not only playing them, but analyzing basically everything that a game works with. So from graphics to sound to mechanics to psychology and color theory and all of those nasty things that people don't really teach at schools, but they are extremely important. Now, it's it might come to be, or it might appear to you as an irony that I am not a game developer. I work as a C++ developer here in Hungary, and I really love my job. But the reason why I'm not a game developer, though I wanted to be a game developer, is because I always thought that I do not possess all the knowledge that is required for me to, well, basically work on an extremely highly respected AAA game. And if you look at the screen in front of you, this is the reason why I love games. Everything that you see here. I'm not going to explain whatever you see on the screen, I love it. And that's what I want to discuss in this series. So, the first topic for me today is going to be development and how someone should, well, if you are working on a game, the first thing you want to do, or how you want to plan your game out, is, hold on, I need to adjust the volume. The first thing that you want to design or to think about is what your game is. And that's a really hard thing to define, actually, what a game means, because it can be literally anything. It's basically a science that has been going on for literally thousands of years, and there are some aspects of game design that are constant, that do not change, but there are some aspects that, well, most of games are just different from one another, and it's really important to define what is going to bring an audience for you, right? It's an investment, if you want to call it that. It's an investment in your knowledge to create something that will get you money somehow, but you want to execute this idea of getting money from your amazing game in a way that people don't hate your game. So it's not just a money crash grab thing, but it's actually something that people do enjoy playing, and that's what I want to talk about. The first part of this series, I want to mention how you should start playing a game. And for this reason, as you may see, you might not know the game. This game is called Guild Wars 2. And I've been playing this game almost since it came out. It came out in 2012, about 7.5 years ago. But I started playing about 7 years ago with one of my best friends. And she really got me into it to a point where I would play around 8 hours a day. Now I'm not a professional gamer. I just really enjoyed playing it, and I want to talk about this game in particular, of how it starts, how it is executed, and how it is managed throughout your time in the game as a player. So, the first thing, the reason why I'm here with this character, if you are not familiar with the game, I'm gonna tell you this is not a basic setup for a player. This is a very advanced skill set and very advanced mounts and all of those. But the reason why I'm here is because this is a starting level. Actually, this is one of the very first parts of the game where you start, if you choose this race. Now, there are obviously many races. I chose this race because was the first I started with, and I really love it, and I want to explain why I love it and why this design for a starting area is genius. So let's actually get into it, because I'm blabbering and I'm really just wasting your time right now. So the very first thing you want to look at is the environment. There is not much sound going on right now, but as you can see, there are some ambient sounds and some dialogues.
And then decided to form a crew of my own.
Right. So there are some dialogues and some NPCs going about, and they talk. They are interactive. They move around. They interact with one another, and most importantly, when you move around, you can talk with these people. If you see, right here, it says "greet" in a greenish color, and
Nothing to see here. Move along.
And I can talk to them. If you have the game on mute, however, then you wouldn't hear them, right? You would just keep pressing the button, and you would have no idea what's going on. However, this is one of the genius designs of the game, which is actually not connected to the very first part. This is me digressing right now, but I want to mention it beforehand, is that
Greetings, citizen.
you have these little speech bubbles above the characters, and this is what really indicates, indicates that someone is saying something. Which is really important. You know, there are some people who cannot play with a good audio or don't hear at all, and the developers thought it would be a great idea if they could implement this speech bubble, so that people with hearing disabilities or impairments could also enjoy the game just as well as a person who can play the game with sound. Now,
How interesting.
right? So you can talk with the people, and for more essential characters in the game, you would have this dialogue window popping up and all that. But actually, that's not very important right now. What I really want to talk about is the design of this first opening area. So when you finish your tutorial session, if we should call that, this is where you end up. And from here on, you can explore whatever you want. Now, the reason why I find this place ingenious is because it's an extremely open space, but it's limited in its horizontal size. If you walk around, then it becomes apparent that this place is not very open, actually. It's big and huge, but it lacks content, right? It's amazingly beautiful, but it lacks action, lacks interactable, vendors and shops and events and all that. So why is this good if you are designing a game? Especially if you're designing a game which will require a lot of your time to play, such as an MMO. Well, the reason why this is ingenious is because when you start playing a game, you are not very sure about what the controls are, how to actually play the game, and you don't want to be overwhelmed if by seeing other players, jumping around and fighting with each other and events going on everywhere. That kind of scares new players into believing that this is something very complicated. And the last thing you want to deal with when playing a game is something complicated. So this is one of the reasons why this area is ingenious. You just start walking, in certain directions, you will end up somewhere, but you realize that while you are doing this process of walking around, you are actually learning the controls better and better. See, you can just walk around and look around. Eventually you get the hang of controlling the mouse and doing a few tricks with the mouse, so you can make your controls more comfortable for your playstyle.
I've got the first problem.
So that's one of the reasons why I think this place is actually pretty amazing. Now, as you just saw, I walked to this area, so let me just go back and show you what I mean.
That won't
If I
work.
walk up the
Instead,
stairs, nothing really happens. We have the map over here, not very interesting. We have some actions going on here, not very interesting. We have a bar down here, which is not very interesting right now. But if I walk down the stairs, exploring the world a little bit and trying to get into things, and then suddenly you hear this pop right here. And if you hover over with your cursor over the symbol, you get a little flash on your map. Oh, there's something right there, I should head there. And you eventually check out what it is, and it is a quest that actually helps you develop. Now let's actually check out what it is, because I don't remember. Haven't been playing this game for a long time now, because I'm busy at work.
Do
But
you work for me?
alright, so this character is saying something about problem with the golems. I think they're next. Oh yeah, something about people developing golems, and everyone is being very arrogant about their skills of building one. Of course, metrics records, all the golems, and Dara, sorry. Blah, 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 blah. What kind of golemancing are you working on? So she's working on something golem, something that she thinks is going to be such a great thing. And you can see that I'm willing to lend a hand. Alright, so she gives you several options of how you can help her. And, as in the starting area, this is really important, because later on in the game, this sense of choosing, it's not very much an illusion, but it sort of is, so I'm not gonna spoil it for you guys, but the sense of choosing certain paths or certain choices of how you can help a person becomes very essential in the game itself later on. Now, I want to, weld some golems, so I click on a few things, I walk around, and if you're one of those players who just, kind of clicks it, doesn't really read what is supposed to be done, you can also do that. I will show you how it's executed. So here we have a golem. It says the golem is in standby mode. How would you like to proceed, right? So we just talked with the girl over there about something about golems, and suddenly we see all these golems or robots set out all over the place. So by default, you would actually approach it and press interact. What would you like to do? So it says the golem is in standby mode. How would you like to proceed? I don't know. It gives you several options of how you would actually try to approach this problem. The first one is either charge the dynamo server, invert the mood matrix, cross the polyellipsoid aggression relay, or yank that thing out. Obviously, the game it gives you options that you have no idea what they are about, and you should not know. These aren't really things that are explained in the game. Just try to approach it. Oh, I want to do something clever, but it's you can't really count on that. So I'm gonna go with yank that thing out, right? Okay, so it's still in standby mode, which means we actually did something right. We still get the first three options the same as the last one, and then I'm gonna swap the neurocryonic circuit with the thermatid circuit. Yeah, that sounds great. Tweak the mood phase polarity, replace the pyrolytic subnode, and prime the necrochromatic overfield. So what I'm trying to present you here is that the game actually presents you with a very simple quest, but already complicates it in a way that you're trying to make you think that, oh, okay, this is actually a robot. How should I maybe replace the Pliotic subnode. Oh, well, actually, it's ready to be activated.
Manual reboot required.
Yeah. So actually, when you activate the golem, you obviously failed because it just disassembled itself. So the next thing you can do. Now that was your actually first lesson. You didn't understand anything. You chose to do something and it failed. Okay. Well, it's supposed to fail because the next step you can do is that you can see the golem's health is at 0%, and you can actually resurrect this golem, which teaches you about resurrection, right? And you can repeat this as many times as you want. And as you are doing this process, you can actually see that our experience level went up a little bit. Our progression on this quest, if you want to call it that. And if you walk to another golem, it's gonna be the same thing. You press a few buttons and you activate it, and it dies again, and you can revive it. So right away, what actually did we learn this first few 100 meters of this level? I think this level is ingenious, not only extremely beautiful, interactive and full of
Yes,
living and
quite imperious.
interactive agents, but it also teaches you how to play the game at a very subtle level. It's not conscious. You actually just walk forward, you see something popping up, you go there, explore it, or investigate it, and then you start pressing a few buttons, and you get used to it.
We create negative field
It
domes
teaches
that soak
you
up spilled magic and then transmute
repetition,
themselves to dispose of
and
That won't.
and that's how you actually start learning a game, by repetition. And I really like this idea, how it's implemented inside Guild Wars 2. Every time you come across something new, it kind of forces you to repeat it over and over until you get comfortable in using that sort of thing. Now it can be whatever, it can be about the mounts, or it can be about jumping or dodging or whatever else. Now actually, yeah, let's poke around a little bit more with these. And actually you can
Power
try...
core unstable. Explosion in 5.
Right,
4,
so you
3,
actually, there
2,
are
1.
Feedback loop initiated.
a few...
This has been a test of the golem evacuation
There are a
system.
few outcomes when you fail, such that you see the red circle. And when you see that red circle, you do something, you
Calculating
activate it.
efficiency. Please wait.
Okay.
1,417 errors.
Alright, that's a lot of errors. So there are a few comical things in this game that teaches you about
Manual reboot required.
your choices do have effect, and they can produce some different outcomes based on your gameplay. And I think that's also very genius. Now, since this is an MMORPG, you would expect to play with others. So, but you still don't see many people around. You would expect, oh, okay, this game is dead. But it's not. There are a lot of people actually going around here. For example, him, and this guy over there. Nope, sorry, there's just a goblin. But I did see someone, you know, just a few people, like the Tracer, the Beetle Racer, and a few other people walking about. But we are still not very much satisfied. This kind of feels like a single player, if you will. And that's, I believe, that's another great point how this game should start out. Most people who start with MMOs, they have some sort of idea of what a game is. You know, maybe they poked around with a few single-player games in their lives. They might not be, or might be, gamers. But the thing is that most people don't start with MMORPGs, and I think that assumption can be made into kind of a statement that holds true. Now, unless there are, I'm sure there are a few cases where people say, okay, my first game was World of Warcraft, for
If I
example.
were to bet money,
Because
and
that's
I'm not
such a
saying that I
classical
am,
game.
I'd
But
lay it
again,
all on Hydra.
that's not very common these days now, is it? Because we have games on phones and all over the place. On the digital media, I mean.
Normal functioning.
So, on one way or another, before you start playing an MMORPG, such as Guild Wars 2, you would have already some sense of some history in gaming, more precisely in single-player gaming. And this is why
Power core unstable.
I
Explosion
think
in 5, 4,
it's a very good
3,
idea to
2,
start a game
1.
that many people can relate to.
This has been a test of the Golem
So you
evacuation
actually,
system.
when designing your first few levels of the game, you really have to incorporate these single-player elements. You can't just throw the people into the deep and say, okay, work together with others. You have no idea what the community is like. You have no idea about anything. Here is the level. Oh, why can't you complete it? Well, because you haven't taught the people how to play the game. And these levels are exactly what Guild Wars 2 is especially amazing for. Now, actually, that sounded really stupid, and I can't really say anything in my defense other than I was just, you know, saying random stuff, because I don't want to keep you guys hanging from content. But what I really meant to say is that there is a lot of thought in starting areas in Guild Wars 2, and they are executed perfectly. Now, of course, since I've been playing with this character quite a lot actually, I'm already on a highest level of 80. This 287 that you see in my level indicator is not actually a level, but kind of a master rank, which is an advanced thing in Guild Wars 2. I'm not gonna get into that, because that does require you to know and be very familiar with the game. But yeah, actually let's talk more about this level. So when you get out of the starting area, you immediately get an extreme, well, basically freedom of walking, you know, exploring in a horizontal level. So far you've been going in, you know, one direction forward, until you get to this very first quest of fixing golems. And after that, you get out of this area, and you realize that you can actually explore all around. Which I think is very self-explanatory why that is done. And the game actually gives you a sense of, okay, do whatever you like, explore. If you don't feel comfortable, just, you know, come back, you know, finish a few other quests, kill a few things until you level up and you're ready to go again. So the game doesn't force you to do things. Which brings me to my, I don't know, 100 billionth point of why this game is awesome. So, the game doesn't force you to do anything, which is great. It suggests you to do things, but it doesn't force you. You can really explore on your own pace, in your own comfortable, you know, whatever. But it doesn't force you to do anything. And the reason why it doesn't do that, why it doesn't force you, is because once you feel like the game is a chore, that you have to do something, that's when fun turns into something that is not. Because when you are forced to do something, you just feel like you know, school or work, and you get enough of that already. So why would you sit and play a game that already does the same thing that you don't really want to do? So this game actually, you know, kind of lures you in with its visuals and effects and interactions of NPCs to participate in events. And
Interested in a study on Skrit intelligence? The Brill Alliance crew needs
this is
you.
what I talk about. This NPC just walked up to me and specifically said something to me And, you know, after that it's gonna just walk around until another NPC or another player comes around and get around to that. If I were to walk around him, I'm sure I would trigger an event that he would find me again and, you know, shout something in my face that, hey, here's an event, do it, it's good for you. So the game suggests you to do certain things, but doesn't force you to do anything. And one of my main, how should I say it? I'm trying to think of a good word, not to upset anyone. One of my main problems with playing World of Warcraft was that it forced me to either play with someone else or forced me to do something I didn't want to do. And I felt after just a few hours or few days or maybe a few months of playing that the game has become nothing more than a chore of me continuously doing what the game wants me to do, but I don't really feel a sense of accomplishment from it, because that's not really, didn't give me any freedom of choice of how I want to play the game. It didn't give me a freedom of my game playing style. Now Guild Wars 2 actually performs pretty good if you're playing alone. Now even though the map is huge, and yes, you will be slower if you play alone, this game is extremely good in a way that you would play it as a single player game. I play this game I played the base story and all the other stories actually alone on the first try. And then when I got familiar with the stories, I actually, played with my friends. Now, of course, I'm not saying that I was a loner and I played this game alone only, and then I got, a few friends to play this game with me. But I always tried, if I could, finish the certain stories or story elements of the game by myself. And yes, you can certainly do that. It does take a lot of patience, and it's not very easy, but you can certainly do that, because I am not a very good player of this game. I have been playing for a very long time, but I always looked at it from from a more technical perspective. Now, as I mentioned before, something about me, that I'm a C++ developer. I have been poking around with game engines such as Unreal and Unity engine on my own. I have created a few hundred projects written in C++ using OpenGL to, try to create something by myself. Now, creating a game is extremely hard. I'm not saying that it's hard in a way that you should know a lot. I'm saying that it takes a lot of effort and time and energy to actually finish something that you are happy with, that you can be satisfied with. And the reason why that is because when you are sitting right above an empty piece of paper or workstation or whatever, you actually have no clue how to start it, what your idea is. And so the first extremely high energy input from you when designing a game is actually planning out what you want to do, what the visuals, what the styles you want to make, what the detail, what's the level of detail you want to make the game. Is it something you want to take very seriously, or is it something that you want to actually just quickly learn from? There's an extremely good working, I'm not sure how to say this in English. I try to think of something. So there is this work paradigm called Scrum, which kind of is not a protocol, but it's kind of a guideline of how a larger team should work together. And there is great emphasis on something which is called fail fast, learn fast. So what this means is basically a paraphrase of the more you practice, the better you get, right? Especially in programming, it's like art. The first 1 trillion billion of your works is not going to be something that you are completely satisfied with, or if you work on your own. I mean, obviously, if you make an assignment for a university subject, then it's going to be something that has already some specifications and whatever that you have to comply with, and your program has to
But
comply
try to
with.
avoid their
But
mother's
when you work on something
or
on your
any
own,
other part of their
then you have
mothers, for that matter.
a huge idea of what you want to do, and every time when you start working on it, then you realize you have limitations. And every time you overcome one of these limitations is when you fail, and when you fail, you learn something from it. Now this is kind of like how playing Guild Wars 2 alone, it kind of is, because once you get to the very later stages of the game, you find yourself, you know, not very strong, alone, and that's when you start to think, okay, maybe I should invite some friends or try different techniques which I haven't tried before, which might work in my favor. Alright, so those were a few things I wanted to talk about in this very first episode of Game Developers Perspective. This series, is very but the name of the series is very bad, obviously, because I'm not a game developer, and this is actually just a personal rumbling of what I wanted to say. But I really wanted to create or start a new series on my YouTube channel, because, again, my English skills are getting horrible, and I do need some kind of fun way to practice it, and I think this is the perfect opportunity for me. And you know, maybe if some people are starting to watching this series, then I can learn new things and talk about those as well. And maybe one day I could potentially become a game developer. So actually I'm gonna leave this episode right here and, you know, see how people or the general audience receives it. Thinks about it. So if you did, thank you so much for watching, and I really hope to see you guys in the very next episode of Game Developers Perspective. Bye bye!